Time to talk persuasive essay. If you are in your nursing English classes, this is the last one you have to write. The finish line is so close. So let's go through and set you up on how to do this. So you should have this PowerPoint. And I'm just going to start at the beginning. A persuasive essay is something that, whether you realize it or not, you do constantly. It's usually not in the form of an essay, but every single time you argue with someone and you want to convince them of something that you believe in, or that anytime you convince them of something that they should do, that's being persuasive. And that's the feel that you're going to do with this paper. We're just going to back it up with some research. So please listen to this for the first time with an open mind. There are some tricky spots to this, and I will walk you through them as best as I possibly can for you. And you do have sample essays coming at you too. Okay, so let's go through the basics like we usually do. A lot of the times people make the mistake with a persuasive essay. They think that they have to change someone's complete morals. So if you did a paper on abortion, by the time I finish reading the end of the paper, then I should have a completely different view of it. And that's not going to happen. And I'm sorry to burst any bubbles, but that's just the reality of it. People's morals and values, those are deep-seated things that are instilled in you from birth. So your paper is not going to completely change someone's mindset. What you are trying to do, though, is by the end of the paper, have them go, oh, okay, I see your point. I might not completely agree with you, but I see your point. That's the goal. So, you do still have to find research to back up your opinion. And a lot of this paper is going to feel like your opinion, and that's okay. But the research, that's the stuff that you find that is actual facts that backs up your opinion. So, for your informative essays, a lot of the times, like if you use Mayo Clinic, for instance, as a source, like we talked about in class. You might use every single link that's on there, symptoms, treatments, causes, diagnoses, stuff like that. With a persuasive paper, though, you are way more selective as far as what information from a source you actually use. So instead of using an entire source's information, you might only find a paragraph that's helpful, because that one little paragraph, you can spin it to make it back up what you're talking about. And the rest of the article or the rest of the web page or whatever doesn't really help your point at all. So, your thesis statement is going to have to be persuasive also. So, think way back in your notes when we talked about thesis statements, and I gave you 5 different sample ones, and one of them was persuasive. Use that as a sample, and as we go a little further in this PowerPoint, we're going to talk about thesis statements also. The thing with your topics don't just have to be good versus bad. So it doesn't have to be, the death penalty is good, the death penalty is bad. Anytime you can have anybody with a little bit of wiggle room say, no, I don't think so, then it's persuasive. So, an example of a persuasive thesis statement that we've done is high heels are the most comfortable types of shoes. Well, if someone goes, hell no, they're not, sneakers are, then it's persuasive. You just need somebody to be able to argue that something else could be. So let's look at some of these examples. Sometimes here's what happens with persuasive thesis statements. Sometimes persuasive thesis statements end up actually accidentally being a fact because you can't argue it another way. For example, right here I'm on this first bullet point. Smoking is bad. That is not persuasive. That is a fact. Nobody can go, you know what, it's actually really, really good. Every time I'm stressed and I take a puff, it makes me feel fabulous when I'm hawking up a lung because I can't breathe well. So you can't argue that. So that would be a fact. Now, there is a way to take the topic of smoking and make it persuasive, but just to say smoking is bad is not persuasive. It's the same thing with drugs can kill. That's a fact. Even if it's just Advil, if you take too much of anything, it can kill you. So we can take that type of a topic and we can make it persuasive and make it sound opinionated, but just as it's written right there, it's just a fact. Okay, so your topics. For this final paper, I'm going to kind of narrow your topics a little bit, and I just want you to focus on anything regarding healthcare, nursing, medicine, anything like that. So you will not be talking about things like capital punishment. And my only personal request, and you don't have to go by this, but my personal request is that you don't pick abortion, because I have read so many papers on that topic that I just can't read any more papers about it, and I would love to see something fresh and new. If you still choose the topic, that's your prerogative, but I'm just so sick of reading about it. But anyway, you want to choose something that you're interested in. So, some examples of this, and you guys can take things that you've already written about and things that you're already interested in. One of you has talked about art therapy in an informative essay. For a persuasive essay, you could say art therapy is the best type of therapy for patients with mental retardation. And I'm sorry, I don't know anything about art therapy, so that could be wrong. Using natural essential oils is the best way to treat common ailments. I've had a lot of people actually do an awesome paper on medical marijuana. And that medical marijuana is the best way to treat certain cancers. So things like that. You can take things that you're already interested in and just twist them. That's why one of the assignments is that you are going to need to email me your topic, your position, which means what opinion you're taking on it, and a sample thesis statement. And the point behind that is so that I can make sure it doesn't look like this, and it doesn't end up factual, and I can help reshape it with you just a little bit. Okay, so here are things you are not doing. You're not going to change 30, 40, 50, 90 years of their beliefs. You just want them to see your point. That's it. You also are not highlighting the other side of the story. So here's what I mean by this. If you pick a position, so I had a student do a paper on donating blood, and her thesis statement was something to the effect of donating blood is the best thing someone can do for patients, something like that, which would be great. So you would expect that everything in her paper would be about why donating blood was so good and what was beneficial about it. Instead, what she did was she talked about all of the reasons why people thought it was bad. So that ended up being a different paper. So whatever your position is, you want to pretend that that's the only position that exists. So if I think that smoking is the worst habit in the world that someone can have, I'm going to forget all of the other bad habits out there that exist, like picking your nose and eating it, or picking a wedgie and smelling your fingers. I'm going to forget that all of those other things exist out there, and I'm just going to pretend that my topic is the only thing that exists. You also don't want to compare and contrast, which can sometimes accidentally happen. Let's take, it happens a lot when you think about like treatments. So let's say cancer treatment, for instance. One technique for cancer treatment is chemotherapy. Someone might be arguing about a more holistic or natural kind of therapy, and sometimes it ends up happening where you pin these two things against each other. So if your topic is the holistic side of things, instead of just talking about the holistic treatments, you end up saying, well, it's better than chemotherapy because, and it's better than chemotherapy because, and you end up accidentally comparing two things, and you don't want to do that. So these are some things that I'm going to be catching as you send me drafts, as long as you send me drafts. So this bullet point you are very used to. You are not going to explain how to do something. This is the trickiest thing to kind of wrap your head around, because I'm saying that you're not going to be informative. The truth is that you are going to be informing your audience a little bit, but you're deciding which information they see and which information they don't. So all of the information that's in this persuasive paper is going to be biased. So it's like when your mom tells you that you're the prettiest person they've ever seen. Well, it's like they have to say it. They're your mom. So there's a tinge of bias there because they're your mother. That's kind of the same thing with this paper. With this paper, you are going to be informing people about your topic, but you're going to give them the information that helps them believe what you want them to believe. And honestly, with this paper, that's the trickiest thing to wrap your head around. So let's talk thesis statements. Here are some ways to construct your thesis statements. The easiest way to do this if you're stuck is to start your thesis statement with something like, I think, I feel, I hope, I wish, I believe, or something like that. And then when you finish the rest of the sentence, then just delete the I think, I feel, I hope part of it, and you'll have a stronger statement that's in third person. That's a thesis statement. So if I did something like, I think donating blood is a awesome thing to do. I don't know. So just delete the I think, and it becomes donating blood is an awesome thing to do. So it sounds much stronger. You're not in first person anymore, and you have a thesis statement. So the thing is, your thesis statement is completely going to feel like and essentially will be your opinion, and that's okay, because the research in your body paragraphs will help prove and back up that thesis statement. Okay, so the other thing with thesis statements, if you're stuck and you can't think of a way to make something persuasive, like with the smoking is bad or the drugs can kill, one easy way to help you out a little bit is to add different things that are called adjectives, comparative and superlative adjectives, which basically are adjectives that end in ER and EST, and that adds persuasion. So smoking is the worst habit. So now I'm adding a degree to it, so someone else can say, oh, no, something else is the worst habit. Picking a wedgie and smelling your fingers is the dirtiest habit someone can have. So when you add these, I don't know why, I don't know where that example came from, don't ask. I'm trying to make this funny because I can't see you in person. But when you can add these ER, EST words in there, it really helps make the thesis statement persuasive, especially if you're stuck in that fact kind of a realm. Okay, so a long time ago when we talked about the components of essays, we talked about this thing called tie to thesis. This is going to be the thing that takes your persuasive paper from good to fabulous. So I'm going to stop this for 1 second. I'm going to pull up a Word document because I just want you to see something that I'm kind of doing off the cuff here. So let's say I write an introductory paragraph. Bear with me a moment, because again, I'm doing this off the top of my head. Okay, so there's my intro. I'm sorry if some of you are going, how did she just write that fast? But I'm doing this a long time. So where's my thesis statement? Yes, this is my thesis statement. Notice up here I just said smoking, but in my thesis I said smoking cigarettes. So this way someone knows I'm not talking about marijuana, cigars, or anything else that I am so drug stupid that can be smoked. Okay, so there's my intro. My next paragraph is going to be a definition of smoking. So, when you're brainstorming this, let's think of why smoking cigarettes is the worst habit that someone can have. So do this with me, and hopefully I'm writing down some of the stuff that you're saying. Bad breath, cancer. You can end up having your tongue removed because of the disease. What else? Your fingers get yellow. Secondhand smoke. Respiratory disease. Spelled that wrong. COPD, which is a kind of respiratory disease. Breathing problems. Wheezing. Sleeping issues. So, what I just did was, and you're not going to do this in the same order, but what I did is I wrote my intro, here's my thesis, and here are the points that I'm going to talk about to help prove why smoking cigarettes is the worst habit someone can have. Okay, so here's my first paragraph. It's going to be a definition of smoking, because remember, this is going to be my background paragraph that's going to help a reader understand what the topic is if they have no idea what it is at all. So then I'm going to take my first point. So let's see. Even though I wrote them in this order, let's do cancer as the very first thing. Okay, now I'm going to write this paragraph and I'm going to make up some of the research and I'm going to make up the internal citations because I am not pausing to do the research itself. So please know that that stuff is going to be fake in about 2 seconds. Okay, here comes a fake internal citation. Because I don't know, I'm just making this up. Okay. I'm trying to think of other places you can get cancer. Cancers of the lung, bone, brain are the most common places. Okay, here comes another fake one. Okay, so this is a really short body paragraph, but I only did this for the sake of an example. Now, okay. One common repercussion of cigarette smoking is the development of cancer. Various cancers can attack the body because of the chemicals inside the cigarettes themselves. This you would have talked about up here in the background paragraph. Cancers of the lung, bone, brain, throat, esophagus, and mouth are the most common places these cancerous cells attack and destroy. The development of so many deadly conditions is one reason why smoking cigarettes is the worst habit one can have. What do you notice about this sentence with everything else that's written on this page? Take a second. If you're thinking that it sounds a lot like our thesis statement, which I have underlined, you are exactly right. So, this thing at the end of the paragraph is called the tie to thesis. So, every single time you write a body paragraph and you inform the reader about your topic, it's going to be this sentence that's kind of like the money shot that reminds your reader exactly what your point is. If you remember the song from a while ago, and This Is Why I'm Hot, the verses talk about how attractive he is, how much money he has, and things like that. And this is why he's hot. I wonder if I can pull that up right now. So think of this song when you think about this tie to thesis. Hopefully this plays. Okay, so that's his thesis statement. This is why I'm hot. Listen to the verses of when he actually explains why he's hot.
This is why I'm hot. This is why I'm hot. I'm hot cause I'm fly. You ain't cause you not. This is why I'm hot. I'm hot cause I'm fly. You ain't cause you not.
Okay, I'm hot cause I'm fly, you ain't cause you not. There's your body paragraph. And then right after that is his tie to thesis again of This is why I'm hot.
This is why I'm hot. This is why I'm hot. I don't gotta rap. I could sell a mill saying nothing on the track. I represent New York. I got it on my back. And they say that we lost it, so I'ma bring it back.
So there's another body paragraph. That's another reason why he's supporting why he's hot.
I love the dirty dirt, cause they show me love. The ladies start to bounce as soon as I hit the club. But in the Midwest, they love to take it slow. So when I hit they win, I watch them get it on the floor. And if you need it hype, I take it to the Bay. First go to Sacktown, they do it every day.
So all of this is evidence as to why he's so hot.
In Hollywood, as soon as I hit LA, I'm in that low, I do it the Cali way. And when I hit the shot, people say that I'm fly. They love the way I dress, they like my tie. They love how I move crowds from side to side. They ask me how I do it, and simply I reply, this is why I'm hot. This is why I'm hot.
And that's his tie back to his thesis. I know it's a little bit of a stretch, but if that's what you remember, then that's all I need. So let's go back to the PowerPoint. Okay, so putting that tie to thesis at the end of every single body paragraph is really what's going to make your paper feel more persuasive than it does informative. So that's one struggle that everybody has with this paper is, Mrs. McDonald feels like it's an informative paper. And it kind of will feel that way. But the points that are changing it are that your thesis is persuasive. You are being selective in what information you show the reader, and that tie to thesis. Those are the three things that are going to really separate your paper from an informative to a persuasive. It is going to start to feel a little repetitious, but at least try to put one in there. The more of these that you have, the stronger and stronger and stronger your persuasion in your paper is. I have some students who like to just take their thesis statement itself and copy and paste it at the end of every body paragraph, and then they go back and change it. Whatever. Just give it a shot. Okay, so this is not a speech. Again, you are not highlighting the other side of the story at all. So if my paper is on why I'm so hot, I'm not going to talk about why I don't think I'm hot. I'm only going to talk about why I'm hot. Okay, so here comes your research. So for this one, I'm asking for a minimum of 3 sources. So for your informative, I asked for 2. Most of you blew past that anyway. So for this one, I'm asking for a minimum of 3 reliable sources. The reason that this has gone up is because since you're taking pieces of sources instead of sources in their entirety, sometimes you need more to put them together. And you do need to have a reference page, you do need to have internal citations, and you need to have them done correctly. Kind of ignore those last couple bullet points because the math on your rubrics are a little bit different than what's written on this slide. So check out your grading rubrics for incorrect reference pages and things like that. So here are some suggestions on how to organize your paper, and this is what I did in that quick Microsoft Word document for you. So you have your introduction, and then your first body paragraph should be background to explain your topic, describe it, and get the reader up to speed. So if I'm doing the smoking topic, I need to explain what smoking is, what cigarettes are, what chemicals and ingredients are in those cigarettes, and things like that. Then each of the things that you want to bring up should at the very least be its own paragraph. So remember over here we brought up all these other points: bad breath, cancer, tongue removed, Each of these can be its own paragraph at the very least. So for each of these points that you want to bring up, what you need to do is explain the topic. So I'm right down, So I'm right down here at the bottom. You want to explain what the point is, or explain what it is. So you notice I explained what cancer is a little bit. Then you have research to back up your point, and then you tie to your thesis. So each of the points that you made, like bad breath, I'm going to have these 3 components for each paragraph. So here's your essay requirements. This is going to be 5 pages. That does not include your title page. It does not include your references. It does include your internal citations, though. And 5 pages is very, very, very possible. So far, I've set lower page counts, and you guys have blown past them every time because you are so awesome, and I know that you can do that with this. This one just is going to take you a little bit more work, but if I don't push you, who will? And I know you can do it. To tell you the truth, on average, the persuasive papers that I get usually range somewhere between 6 and 7 pages, but again, if I told you that, you'd have a bigger heart attack than you're already having on me. Do not worry about the page count. Worry about your content first, then worry about the length. So, here's why you're doing this. Again, this is probably, even if you never put it in an essay form, this is probably one of the most common kinds of writing or talking that you're ever going to use, even with patients if you want to try and convince them of a treatment method and things like that. So, black screen. So here's how I suggest that you go about doing this. Let me give you some steps. I hope you can see this. So, step 1. is pick a topic. I can't type. Step 2 is figure out your stance, position, opinion. They all mean the same thing about the topic. So, you know, if you pick smoking, well, what's your position on it? It's good, it's bad, it's horrible, it's wonderful. That's your stance. That's your position. Create a thesis statement. So here's your game plan for starting this paper. And if you notice these 5 things, I did numbers 1 through 4 with you up here. And this is how extensive brainstorming can be. It doesn't have to be the concept mapping and the bubbles and the lines and all that kind of stuff that you saw in grade school or anything like that. Now, these first 3 things, this is an assignment for you. So check your deadline calendars, because you are going to have to send me an email that has these first 3 pieces of information in it. I don't care if you get the thesis statement wrong or the thesis statement isn't quite persuasive on the first shot. As long as you turn these 3 things in by email, by deadline, you will get credit for it. It just helps me work you through the thesis statement a little bit, because that can be pretty tricky. Now, you can see your deadline calendar, and you can see when we're going to be doing drafting workshops and when your final draft is due and things like that. And because we're getting towards the end of the quarter, you don't have as much time with this one as you'd have had with the others, because the idea behind it is that you're getting better. However, in no way does that mean that you cannot be sending me drafts. You can be sending me pieces of things. Even if you do number 4 and you want to send me that, fine. I'm not requiring you to show me your reference page for this one like I did with the informative, but I strongly suggest that you do it anyway. And the reason that I'm starting to pull back a little bit is so that you can start to really see the initiative that you're developing, because when this program continues, it's all about initiative, and what initiative are you taking to complete these projects and get the guidance that you need. So, I hope all of this has helped. If you do have the PowerPoints, you will be getting student samples of this. If there are any questions that you have, don't ever hesitate to let me know. And I hope that this helped. Talk to you soon.